All right, hello. My name is Blake Weehee. I am a grad student in M534, Research in Math Education, and I'm going to be presenting today on a chapter I read from the Compendium of Research into Mathematics Education, Chapter 31, something very near and dear to my heart, the whole purpose, my whole passion for coming to grad school in the first place, and that is technology for learning mathematics. Now, you may recognize some of these logos surrounding my title screen here. Let's jump in and talk about how some of these apps that you may or may not have seen before apply to this research and how they might apply to your teaching in the near future. All right, to begin, I am a nerdy teacher, so I do have a learning target for us. When I created this presentation, I essentially had this vision in my mind of creating something that would help you as the viewer discover technologies that can not only help engage your students, but can also help improve your teaching. Now, I'm here to tell you that the robots are not going to steal your job. We're still a little early for that. Teaching is super complex, super difficult, super human, right? Super interactive. So let's not be scared of technologies. Let's leverage them to help us because we do exist in a modern world. The world is transitioning toward technology, and we want to leverage that to help our students be as successful in their careers and lives as possible. Okay, so remember when I said this was going to be practical? Well, these are the 6 apps that we're going to be referencing in this presentation. You may have heard of them, you may have not. IXL, really awesome, interactive math workbook style program that grades your work every time you submit a problem, instant feedback, you can create classrooms, check students' progress, all the good stuff about technology. It's essentially, I'd call it like a 21st century textbook, right? Okay, another one, Desmos. Desmos is probably the most beautiful graphing calculator for free online that you can find, and they've started to take their graphing calculator functionality and turn it into assignments that have some actual context. In fact, this is me doing this assignment right here. I took this screenshot or this GIF myself, and you can just kind of get an example of one of the cool activities they have for students to do. Another one, Photo Math. Okay, this one's a little scary. This turns on the alarm bells in every math teacher over the age of 50. They just think cheating, 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 right? Because back in the day, with very, very simple math that students would do out of textbooks, you could do a whole math assignment in just moments using this. What I like to see it as is a teacher away from the classroom, a way for students to actually learn about something that makes absolute no sense to them, using something that is freely available to them, and it's your job as the teacher to teach them how to use it effectively, responsibly, and hopefully how to use it to accomplish more complex and more difficult math than just photo math could for them. Okay, another one, Wabbit Emu, probably the funniest name out of all of them. I don't know why it's called that. Really, it's just a TI-84 graphing calculator emulator for your computer. Super awesome. Teach your students how to use graphing calculators live. You can watch the clicks happen. Free to download. I love it. Use it all the time. Now, Khan Academy. If you don't know what Khan Academy is, you are not from Earth, because this is the most popular learning platform in existence. If you know Sal Khan, he's the guy with the videos, right? Whenever you search any question online, it's either Crash Course or Khan Academy. And they've started to create kind of platforms for students to interact with and watch their videos in kind of a more worksheet or activity manner. And finally, something that I am really happy to present from my alma mater at the University of Colorado, PhET, PhD Educational Technologies. Here, let me move my little video so you can see their logo. Interactive simulation, that's what it's all about. This is for students to just play with and understand physical properties of our universe from a mathematical perspective, a scientific perspective. They have a bunch of different really cool interactive simulations that really bring math into the real world. All right, so the Compendium of Research in Mathematics Education. I went ahead and read 30 plus pages of this chapter, so you don't have to. I'm not going to bore you to sleep with all this academic smarty pants talk. We will talk about the theory, we will talk about the research, but to begin with, I thought I'd just use a tool, freewordcloudgenerator.com, to really illustrate what this chapter is all about. What I did is I copy pasted the whole chapter, all 30 plus pages, and it picked out the words that most commonly repeated themselves, some very obvious ones like the ones from the title, mathematics, students, technology, mathematical and learning, yada yada, but other words that I think are extremely interesting and important and were mentioned quite often, words like dynamic, Words like representations, right? Tools, conceptual, right? Words like feedback, productivity and support, skills and understanding, right? The meaning of these words contain the true power of technology in the classroom. And when you compare the themes that are so present in textbooks from the 20th century, I promise you, words like dynamic are not used to describe those. All right, so the big word, technology. What does that mean in a general context? What does that mean in our context? Well, to get our basis in a general context, I stole from Cambridge Dictionary the practical use of scientific discoveries. I love the word practical. I love scientific discoveries. But what does this mean in a mathematics classroom? Well, 6 concepts that we're going to discuss in more detail. 1, technologies can be interactive, right? Requiring input from the user. Technologies also help students learn modern skills. Not only can we use technology to teach students mathematics, but we can use technology to teach students technology, right? Which is going to be really important in their careers and life ahead. Technologies are adaptive. Out with the days of standardized tests, in with the days of adaptive tests, tests that give advancing students more of a challenge and give students who are struggling some more basic work for them to prove at least what they do know. It's adaptive. Another great feature of technology, instant feedback. You put in a problem and you don't have to wait a week for the teacher to grade it, right? You get your answer right then and there and you're told not only if you're right or wrong, but you get given an explanation if you do get it wrong. Okay, for the teacher's perspective, progress tracking. Why grade all your students' work and collect it into binders and enter all your grades into PowerSchool? That's so freaking old school. Let's just use the systems that are created and we can track our students' progress. We can use the algorithmic data to see where every student is at in real time. Super powerful, super beneficial. And this last one I gotta move my video for, self-discovery. Y'all are students in college right now. Don't tell me that 100% of what you've learned has come from teachers and textbooks only. I know you use Google to discover your own learning, to discover your own answers. Technology enables us to self-discover. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this research article. Now, these authors are not arguing whether or not technology is effective in the classroom. Essentially, they argue that it is effective if used appropriately. And in order to use technology appropriately, you have to know the role that it's filling in your classroom. So they propose a framework suggesting 3 different roles that technology can play. I took the 6 applications we just introduced and broke them down into categories, starting with applications that help us simply do mathematics. You are given a problem, you know where you're heading, maybe you just don't have the mental capacity to solve the calculations, so use a calculator, right? Use photomath to help you do the mathematics and approach more complex math that way. Okay, now you have your kind of textbook style applications such as Khan Academy and iExcel that help students practice mathematics. They can input their own answers to certain questions, they get feedback, they get tracked, they get progress reports, all these cool things. It's essentially a textbook in the 21st century. And finally, the shining golden end goal for all technology application or education technology creators out there, apps that help us conceptualize mathematics. So developing an understanding from the inside out, a more intuitive understanding of mathematics, because it's like a playground, the mathematical playground, we'll call it, where maybe there's not right or wrong answers, but rather simulations and tools that help students see mathematics play out in the real world. Let's break down these technologies one by one, see how they apply to the research presented in the compendium, starting with WabbitEmu, which is essentially a TI-84 calculator, the most commonly used technology in any math classroom across the world. Now, I know the debate still exists. Should students use calculators? Should they be able to do this work in their head or by hand? Calculator use, free and open calculator use in classrooms, has proven in multiple studies to benefit not only students' ability to solve calculation problems with accuracy, but also has proven beneficial to students' test scores and understanding in abstract classes such as algebra. In fact, I still have my Inspire CAS from high school. This is 10 years old, this calculator. My calculus teacher in high school promoted us, taught us how to use this every single day. I used it all the way through college in mechanical engineering. I still use it to this day in teaching and tutoring. Love this thing. Let your students use calculators. And while we're on that topic, let's talk about photomath, because I know it's really scary. You think, oh, well, if I give my students simple problems like this, they're just going to solve every problem easily and never learn anything. Well, that's where the idea of modern skills comes into play, right? In the modern world, engineers are not solving problems as basically symbolic as this. Problems are intertwined in a series of information, words, and context. And really, all these apps are doing is freeing up the student's working memory in their brain, allowing them to forget about some of these denser calculations so that they can instead piece together the whole story of a more complex math problem without getting bogged down in the simple numerical calculations. So please do use calculators. Please do allow students to use photomath in your class. Promote it. I promise you, you'll be the coolest math teacher in the world. They'll think if you tell them, hey, we're gonna use this app to cheat today. Let's learn how to use it, right? But you have a plan because you're a teacher. You're a savvy teacher. All right, on to the next, Khan Academy, and I'll just go ahead and skip right into IXL and kind of bounce back and forth between these GIFs. Like I said, 21st century textbook. Tracks students' progress so that the teacher can really easily just have a finger on the pulse of the classroom in real time, understand where students are at. Every app uses their own metric, right? IXL uses Smart Score. Khan Academy uses some other sort of like achievement points. But whatever, it's all relative. What you will see, though, is that it's a really easy way, once you get used to the technology, to see where your students are at any given moment. As well as for the students, these apps offer instant feedback. So here you see in the GIF Khan Academy, student got the problem wrong, offers an explanation, they get to try again, then they get their progress report. IXL, very similar. You can get a question right, or you can get a question wrong. It'll offer you feedback and let you try again. Instant feedback is awesome. Don't take a week to grade your students' work and get stressed out on the weekend about finishing it and so they can get it to them soon enough. If you didn't give them the instant feedback the moment they did the problem, it's too late. So just use technology to offer that instant feedback. The final role of technology, apps that help students conceptualize mathematics. Now, these apps do not offer the same kind of quizzing instant feedback that IXL and Khan Academy do, but what they do offer is an adaptive and self-discoverable environment for students to adjust sliders and see, truly visualize mathematics existing in the real world. Now, this is just one simple animation that I was playing with earlier, but they have like, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 different interactive simulations on PhET and of course Desmos as well, as we were seeing earlier. These are apps that present a simulation of the real world and then ask students to play with that simulation so they can see how different constants and coefficients and variables play a role in a real world scenario. Now, to be fully clear, students will not learn mathematics unless they truly engage and interact with these types of applications. And beyond that, it still will take some teacher intervention to really drive home what this app is trying to illustrate. Students get a whole lot of information more and in a very novel way than they're used to, but it still does require the teacher sitting down and having a conversation and asking the student really what they're doing, what they're playing with, and what it really means. And those are the types of conversations that we call teachable moments. And I promise you, using PhET and Desmos in my classes has produced by far and away the most organic teachable moments than really any other technology or non-technology that I've tried before. So, as it turns out, 15 minutes is not a whole lot of time, so let's rip through these conclusions and one quick reflection question, and we can be on our way. So, technology, it's algorithmic. A lot of these platforms give students instant feedback and adaptive tutoring, so they don't have to wait a week for their work to be graded. And for teachers, you don't have to spend a week grading student work, right? Let the technology do that for you, so you as a teacher can focus on, inspiring creativity and answering questions in real time. Now, technologies are also practical. Students are born in the 21st century. Give them modern tools so they can learn modern skills. It's going to benefit them the most into their future. Okay, we live in the internet age. Everyone is connected. Borders mean less and less as the days go by, and math is the universal language. What better way to connect students to other students, teachers, and resources across the world and across time than these internet learning technologies? Now, like we all know, these students are born into a world where they are just stuck on these things at any given moment of the day that they're not in school and being told to be off their phones. So let's use these technologies to engage students. Let's meet them where they're at and show them that school can actually be kind of fun and interesting and appeal to what they're used to. And of course, technologies allow for students to grow their own learning. They get to do their own exploring. And what that means for teachers is that our role kind of transitions from being a teacher to becoming more of a tutor. And if any of you have ever tutored before, you know how relaxing and stress-free it is when a student comes to you with questions and you're like, oh yeah, I can answer those. I got you. But trying to force students to ask questions is way more difficult. So let students drive their own learning. They'll come to you with questions, and it just makes the classroom lighter, more fun, and actually promotes more learning in the long run. And on to the final reflection question, let me ask you, how would you have benefited from technology being used in your K through 12 classrooms? Often the answer to that gives you insight into how you might leverage technology in your classrooms in the future. So circling back to the learning target for today, did you discover technologies that may help engage your students or improve your teaching? If so, keep exploring. These are not the only 6 learning platforms that exist. I promise you, your students are going to be so stoked that your classroom is a tech-forward classroom. They're going to feel like they're actually in your class for a reason, and it's going to have a legitimate impact on their future. Please reach out to me with any questions you have. Have fun with your classrooms into the future. Have fun with these applications. I mean, part of the reason I love teaching is because I love learning, and playing around with these applications has taught me so much because I wasn't afforded these opportunities when I was in high school. One last little bonus gift before I go. This is the SCREENCASTIFY app I use to record this presentation and record all the GIFs I put into the presentation. I also used it for all my years of teaching STEM and math in high school. So much easier to just create a short GIF of you showing the instructions for the day rather than typing it out on a page-long document and re-explaining it to every student. Like I always say, a GIF is worth 1,000 explanations, and really any one of these applications is worth 1,000 worksheets. Thank you for being an educator. Good luck to you into the future, and let's all look ahead to a bright 22nd century.